I don't know if Isaiah knew that he was creating a timeline when he wrote chapters 2 through 14 of his book. I don't know if Nephi knew that those same chapters constituted a timeline for the last days when he added them to his book. What I do know is that both prophets were inspired to give us those chapters. Originally, chapter 2 was the first chapter of Isaiah's book. He didn't add chapter 1 until later, much like, in many ways, Joseph Smith added section 1 of the Doctrine and Covenants, years after receiving many of the other sections. So, chapter 1 of Isaiah is both a summary and warning for us, and chapters 2 through 14 comprise his timeline for the last days. But what happens after that? Starting with chapter 15, Isaiah begins circling back to offer greater detail to those prophecies found in his timeline. The timeline ends with the death of the Assyrian tyrant, the great Antichrist, and with Zion flourishing as the earth enters its millennial rest. Then, with chapter 15, Isaiah circles back to give us the burden of Moab, which is about a land being invaded and overrun by the Assyrian army. But Isaiah is speaking not only of Moab's destruction in his day, but of Moab's destruction in the last days, something he makes clear in the original introduction to his book. Moab, just east of Judah, was originally part of the promised land given to Abraham, and in the last days it'll be restored to be part of the promised land given to the 12 tribes. In Isaiah's day, some covenant people lived there, but it was mostly inhabited by Gentiles. Moab had many mountains, but it also bordered the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place on earth. The Moabites had many vineyards and made the best wines. It was filled with many people and rich farms and productive orchards. But remember, Isaiah was using Moab as a type of another land in the last days, a land inhabited mostly by Gentiles, with some covenant people, a land filled with vineyards and rich farms. This is the land where the terrifying Assyrian invasion of the last days will begin. After massive earthquakes weaken this Gentile land, 16 cities will be destroyed in the Assyrian invasion, some in a single night. There will be survivors, but their burden will be terrible. They will howl in grief, and many of them will become bald. Isaiah says that the rivers and streams will be poisoned so that no green thing can grow. He says that the invaders will use weapons that can destroy entire cities in a night, that can cause survivors to go bald, and that can pollute the land and water so that no green thing can grow. So Isaiah uses Moab as a type of a latter-day land, but he doesn't name it for us. But to me, it seems that this land of mostly Gentiles, this land of mountains and valleys filled with lush vineyards, this land with beaches on a salt sea, corresponds to America's west coast, especially California. In the timeline, Isaiah said that the invader would come with speed swiftly, and none shall be weary nor stumble among them. He said that their arrows will be sharp, and all their bows bent, and that their roaring shall be like a lion. In the timeline, the last part of chapter 5 seems to match this burden of Moab perfectly. In later chapters, while still circling back, Isaiah gives us many more details about what will happen to whom in the very last days. Of course, he uses types and metaphors, which can be hard to understand, but as Nephi says, those with the spirit of prophecy will understand them. In fact, he says that the words of Isaiah will be of great worth unto them in the last days, for in that day shall they understand them. The words of Isaiah are for us, because they are about us, and it is up to us to discern the truth of his words by the Spirit, and then to learn by the Spirit how to prepare for the trials that are surely coming our way. And I submit that one way of preparing is to follow the Lord's simple commandment to search these things diligently. Simple, but hard. But if we want the blessings associated with this commandment, we must first keep the commandment. Chapter 15 is just the beginning of Isaiah circling back to give clarity and detail to events he's already revealed. After the timeline, he gives us 52 chapters of these details. And if we are diligent, we will find them all to be of great worth. I'm Curtis Taylor with the Words of Isaiah.